Hello, everybody. Nice to have you with us. It's This Week in WordPress episode. Look at me, I'm getting short-sighted. I'm having to put the glasses down like that to read the number off the screen. Episode number 213. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us. Look at us. If you're on the screen watching us at this particular moment, there's 5 of us. We never have 5. We've gone for the full Monty of what the platform can cope with. Let's just go round the house and introduce everybody sort of one at a time. Michelle Frechette, first off. Michelle, shall I read your intro, or do you want to introduce yourself, being the co-host and all that?
I do a whole bunch of stuff in WordPress, but my chief role is the Director of Community Engagement for Stellar WP, which includes all of our plugin companies, which Matt is wearing a t-shirt for one of them right now, which is Give WP. So as one of our brands, as well as that, I do a bunch of other things. I write for Post Status, and I am the board president for Big Orange Art.
Thank you so much, Michelle. The list is considerably longer than that. In fact, so long is the list that we could be here for much of the episode. So, Michelle, bravo for all that you do. It's very, very much appreciated. Let's move on to Anshan's, to Michelle's side. I don't know if it's left or right, depending on where you're looking. We've got Marcus Burnette. He's new here. How are you doing, Marcus?
I did it right the first time.
Yes. Nice. I'm just gonna battle through the imposter syndrome of hanging with this crew, but otherwise good.
Oh no imposter syndrome here. Well,
somehow I missed the memo on the glasses. I need to find some glasses to put on.
That's true. Look at you spotting that there. That's right. Yeah, we're all wearing black glasses as well, which is kind of
It just means yours aren't broken yet. Your eyes aren't broken yet, like the rest of us.
Right.
It's coming.
I'd go with the not glasses. Anyway, Marcus, I'm going to introduce you properly. Marcus is a part of the GoDaddy Pro events and community team. He's one of the hosts of the Do the Woo podcast, and he's a team rep for the new WordPress photo directory, which we will come to in a minute. Where are you coming from today, Marcus?
I am in beautiful Orlando, Florida. Nice and sunny.
Nice. And being like a co-host of Do the Woo, you weren't serious when you said like imposter syndrome. Surely you're just doing this kind of stuff all the time, right?
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting used to it, but this is a special crew.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We'll get onto the other bits and pieces in a moment, but for now, let's introduce the other 2 people. You can see at the other side of the screen. First of all, we've got Anshan. Anshan, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Anshan and I speak. Anshan and I speak at the minute on a more or less hourly, I would say at the moment, on an hourly basis because of something which we'll tell you about in a moment. Little hint here, and also on Anshan's hoodie. Anshan, though, does little more than just that because she's the founder of Simply Digital Design, the co-founder of Simply Stunning Sites, and the co-host of the Page Builder Summit. She's been an avid contributor to the WordPress community for the last 6 years. She loves hosting and speaks at summits, as well as helping clients produce their own summits. Yeah, that's basically how we got started with our summit thing, isn't it? Because you were already doing them, so you're a bit of an expert. You do those for clients as well, right?
I do, yes. Yeah.
Very, very nice. Well, thank you for joining us today. And finally, last but by no means least, we'll see if the audio holds up. We're going to try this out because Matt a moment ago joined us. Matt Cromwell, that is. You can see him on the screen. He joined us and his audio wasn't working so well. So, Matt, can you hear us now?
I can hear. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, and we're without the echo as well, so that's really cool. I'll do a quick intro. Matt is the co-founder, as has already been mentioned, of Give WP, lead admin at Advanced WordPress, generosity buff, father of 4, lucky husband to 1, and helper to all. I'm father of 3, Matt, and father of 3 was like, whoa! It went from 2 was enough, 3 was mad, 4? What? How do you even cope?
After 2, it's just kind of like, let's put in another one. It's all fine.
I can assure you that wasn't my experience. Adding the extra 3rd one in was like... Anyway, really, really nice to have you.
We're about to add some cats and chickens to the mix too, so...
Oh, okay. We can do pets if you like as the end. Let's do pick of the week of pets, see who's got what. We're going to get onto the WordPress bits and pieces. We're going to cover the WordPress news for this week. First of all, though, a few bits of housekeeping. This is generally done every single week. It's just to let everybody know how and if you want to make comments. There's a couple of places you can go. Go to wpbuilds.com/live. If you go there, you need to be logged into Google because it's YouTube comments. On the other hand, if you're in our Facebook group, you can go to wpbuilds.com/Facebook, search around, do the mindless scroll until you eventually come across the live bit. And when you find that, stop. But you aren't going to be able to comment with anything like your name until you go through this maelstrom of things. You've got to go to chat.restream.io/FB. Otherwise, you'll remain anonymous. Now, that's probably okay. It's up to you. You can get over that by just typing in your name at the beginning of the comment. But if you do wish to de-anonymize yourself and let us know who you are, chat.restream.io/FB. Okay. We've got a couple of people who've joined us so far. Courtney Robertson, hello. Very nice to see you once more. And, it was really nice actually seeing you in person the other day. Last week's presenter, Cameron Jones, joins us as he does more or less every single week from Australia. Michelle, he says, also gets the best hair on the show. I object. I think no. Okay, fair enough.
Well, to be fair, he has sported purple hair quite often.
Oh,
so.
that's true. Yeah, that's true. Well, he joined us last week and told us all about the things that were going on for him. Ko-fi plugin, that was kind of a nice thing that I didn't know about him. Good morning, team, from Mark Westgard. What can I say about Mark Westgard, apart from the fact that he was cracking fun at WordCamp Europe? We sat next to each other, probably more than was sensible for him, because he had to literally listen to me eating sushi. He can tell you about that another time. Elliot Sowersby from just down the road where I live. Good afternoon, Elliot. And good day, Peter. I think Peter, Philadelphia. Have I got that right? I'm so sorry if I've got that wrong.
I believe. I think I thought he was in Connecticut, but I could be
okay.
Wrong.
He's in Connecticut. It's definitely Connecticut. I defer to Michelle and Nathan. Oh, sorry. This isn't me. This is Courtney saying, Nathan, is your hair longer than Anshan's? I don't know.
Don't think so.
It could be. He's Connecticut. He says, oh, no way. Look, it's really long. Anshan always has it in a bun when we talk, or at least it's sort of back there somewhere. So, okay, you win. You get the award for the longest hair. Right, okay, let's get on with the WordPressy stuff for this week. First of all, this is us, wpbuilds.com, blah, blah, blah. Go to that site. Look, there's a logo on there. Can you see that, Marcus? There's a great big fat GoDaddy sponsor logo. How nice is it to have one of our sponsors on the show? Thank you to Marcus and the team for sponsoring the WP Builds podcast. First news story, Sarah Gooding, WP Tavern, WordPress 6.1. Feels like we've only just got WordPress 6, but that train just keeps on moving. It's to focus on refining full site editing, next phase collaboration, and multilingual features anticipated in 2023-25. Matthias Ventura, those of you that watched or were present at WordCamp Europe, Matthias was supposed to be on stage with Josefa and Matt, but he never managed to turn up. Was there like some kind of emergency which meant he couldn't show up? Does anybody know what the reason for that was? No? No, it's like tumbleweed. No, nobody knows. Okay, so anyway, he was supposed to come on stage and do this bit, basically explain all about the things coming in WordPress 6.1, but didn't make it. And I was just curious as to whether, he'd had an accident or something. I was going to wish him, best of health. And he was identifying the refinements that are going to take place over the next few iterations of WordPress. The main thrust is making site navigation a smoother experience through a new browse mode. If you click on the links in the show notes, which I'll be sharing tomorrow morning, you'll be able to see what that looks like. And then also block patterns are going to get a really nice big update, because at the moment, if you chuck a block pattern in, it kind of all the bits and pieces come for the ride. You just chuck the pattern in, and then you've got 400,000 nested blocks that you have to deal with. And in the site inspector, you've just got rows and rows of nested things, and it all becomes a bit complicated. So they've come up with this new UI where you can basically interact with the parent element. So you can just sort of chuck the pattern in and then move the whole thing up and down. You don't have to get involved with all of the little bits and pieces. If you're happy with them, you can just leave them as they are. And essentially, it just neatens it up and you don't get quite so many bits and pieces nested in there. Again, you can watch it on the video there. And here's the most exciting thing, I think. Honestly, I'm not being facetious. I think this is the most exciting thing in WordPress ever. It's collaborative editing. So Google Docs style editing. For me, that is a total win. Once that's arrived and we can do basically Google Docs style editing, I just think it's sort of game over. The article then goes on to talk about certain people who at WordCamp Europe quizzed Matt and Josefa about the fact that multilingual has been, I don't know if it was pushed. I think it was phase 4 anyway. Anyway, multilingual is going to come after collaborative editing. And I think there was a few people which wished that it had come round the other way. So floor's open. Guys, feel free to interrupt. I know Matt and Marcus, you've not been on before. Basically, it's a bun fight. You just speak, cross-talk, whatever you like, and eventually we'll figure out who's going to speak. So go. Nobody go.
I'll go. After being in Europe for the last almost 2 weeks, I agree with you that I think collaboration is going to be fantastic. However, I think I'm on the team of folks that think that maybe multilingual should be pushed up.
Okay.
I struggled at times in Europe. I was in Porto, but I was in 2 other countries, and not being able to speak the language, I could commiserate with the folks that are having to deal with WordPress in their non-native language as well. So that's my 2 cents. I think English speaking, there are a lot of English speaking places in the world, but it's not the majority. And I think that that we would have a greater reach if we were to put a little extra priority on some of the multilingual things. And I say that as somebody who only speaks one language, and it's English. It's the language that WordPress is predominantly in, and I still think that that should be pushed up.
I think that was very well argued, actually. I think that's a really good point, and one that as an English speaker I more or less always forget. So bravo, point well made. I'll just quickly share on the screen the sort of reasoning behind why they've pushed it, and it says it basically is as follows. Mullenweg explained why he believes it's important to prioritize 3 before multilingual features. So phase 3 is collaborative editing, and he said phase 3 workflow, and I quote, "This is basically where we're going to take real-time..." Actually, I'll ignore that. Where's the bit about... No, not that one. Where's the other quote? Here we go. I would say that when we look at phase 4, the first thing we're going to look at is how all the plugins are doing it. Perhaps one of those plugins could even become the basis for what comes into core. It's okay if the plugins take different architectural approaches because we want to see pluses and minuses of those. And he also mentions the fact that it's going to need a massive re-architecturing of WordPress core because everything, users and categories and tags and everything will need to come under the purview of multilingual, and allegedly that piece of work is a massive undertaking. So that was the reasoning behind that. Right, anyway, sorry, I've interrupted.
Yeah, but why not do that before you get into collaboration? Why not do that re-architecturing before you make it even more complex?
Yeah. I can't find the quote though, but it's on that page somewhere. I'll link to it in the show notes. Yes, I think it's a choice that they made, isn't it? I expect it's because collaborating is just dead exciting to look at.
Well, there's already a plugin for collaborating too, right? So Multi-Dots has the multi-collab that they released this year, and it actually works really well.
Go on, say that again. What's it called?
It's called Multi-Collab, and it's by Multi-Dots, and they released it this year. I saw it back in February in action, and it's a really nice collaboration plugin for people. It works a lot like Google Docs does, for people to be able to collaborate in real time on posts and pages.
That's cool. I'd never heard of that before. So you're saying that part of that whole jigsaw piece has been taken out of the picture anyway.
I mean, it's not a free plugin, but still, it's there if it's something that you want to be able to use on your teams. It's just if you want to pull it up, it's multicollab.com, I believe. It might be .io. Let me double check.
Do you think that this piece I mean, essentially now, if a word processor or anything that you write text into online doesn't have that collaborative feature, and you've got to click save in order for it to save itself, and it's not, saving things asynchronously, it just kind of feels a bit Stone Age now, doesn't it? And I wonder if that's the feeling with the Google Docs thing. He wants it to feel a little bit more like Google Docs. So in the next year or so, and I'm talking about Matt in particular, he wants it to feel like that just so that it doesn't feel out of date, and a place where, the cool kids are willing to hang out and the new kids are willing to hang out because of the hemorrhaging for services like Wix and Squarespace, who've got all of this built in already.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I'm going to take that URL and I'll put it on the screen. Thanks, Michelle. That's kind of cool.
Sure. You're going to get a pop-up to subscribe to their newsletter. So.
Oh, I'm not going to go on the screen. It's multicollab.com. No, I'm not going to put it up if all I'm going to get is a pop-up. But
no, you're going to get more. Just X out of the pop-up. That's all.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's do it. Let's see what we get. Okay, here it is. Here it comes. Courtesy of Michelle. Oh, yay. All right. It does look like Google Docs, doesn't it? It's surrounded by the Gutenberg editor, and you can comment. You can leave replies. Yeah, I wonder how troublesome it is on a cheap hosting environment, because of all the things that are going on at the same time. You've got like 5 people editing the document.
It looks like it's focused on the commenting aspect. I wonder if it includes like multi-editing, because I think that's what Mullenweg was talking about, was being able to see folks working in the doc at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. The screenshot that's on the multicollab.com website is showing a Gutenberg editor with the ability to add comments, it looks like. So that feature exists certainly in Google Docs, but I think, like Matt was saying, the greatest bit for me of Google Docs is that whole thing where you can actually watch what people are typing in real time. And although it's kind of few and far between that I need that, the times that I have had to use it, it's been a real lifesaver. It's just such a great thing to go in and all have this canonical source of truth in this one document.
Yeah. It's a pretty complex feature. I mean, it's easy to get it wrong as well, because we use ActiveCampaign for emails, and people can be in an email at the same time. And if somebody changes that email in ActiveCampaign, it basically does this like live reload refresh and says, oh, somebody changed something. And it's like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
I feel like the ActiveCampaign version of multi-collab has something to be desired. I
remember seeing Google Docs for the first time. I was actually sitting literally next to somebody, and we thought, let's see what this looks like, because we heard about it. So we both got into a Google Doc, and we were both like, oh, it's voodoo. What's going on? This is just like, no, I can see your cursor. And then we highlighted things. Oh, I can see what you've highlighted. And now it just seems so ordinary and completely a requirement for all that kind of stuff. I just really love the fact that you basically can't overwrite something, like you were saying in ActiveCampaign. If you accidentally go in at the same time as somebody else and click save after they've written their 3,000 word masterpiece, you just happen to be 5 seconds after them. Yeah, it can be a bit of a thing. Anyway, that's coming in WordPress 6.1, all of that good stuff. Anshin, anything on that, or shall we move on?
I'm not sure that I would actually use that. I actually like the idea of compartmentalizing like the pages. Like we work in a team, but we like split up the pages and things like that. And I don't know, maybe I'm just not forward thinking enough. But I would,
Maybe
I like the idea that I do it and I save it and
Yeah, well, no, horses for courses. Maybe each person wants a different thing. If you could toggle it on and off, it would be cool. But yeah, it feels to me like if you can keep up with Google Docs in a free CMS, then you're doing something right. Okay, so I'll link to those in the show notes for tomorrow. We've got a couple of comments here. I inquired about multilingual, says Courtney Robertson. For Learn, I wish I could have communicated that I was seeking to get tooling for multilingual that would be a stopgap solution. And she also makes the point that there are some great multilingual plugin options as well. Yeah, coming to mind just off the top of my head, a Weglot, WPML, There's Translate Press. There's probably more. If anybody can shout one out, that would be good. I can't think of any more.
Polyglot.
Yeah, indeed. They all seem to be quite well represented at WordCamp EU. They all had booths in fairly big booths. It must be a fairly booming industry, I would have thought, because Weglot in particular had a giant booth, didn't they? It was really quite impressive. I don't think I saw WPML this year, which you normally
were there. Yep.
Were they? Okay.
Yep.
Alrighty, let's move on. Let's go to the second story. This isn't so much of a story. This is just blatant promotion. And I hope that's okay because, we haven't really promoted it until now. I think I've mentioned it a couple of times, but we're going to do the full Monty promotion because, oh, look, now that there's 5 of us on the screen, my face is totally taken over by the logo. I'm going to keep that there. I can switch it off, but honestly, I think it's better for everybody if my face is covered up. So this is happening next week. It starts on Monday. I think it starts at about midday. I can't exactly remember off the top of my head, but Anshin can clue us in more. Anshin, I drone on about stuff all the time, so I'm just going to hand it to you. Just sell the Page Builder Summit to all and sundry.
Oh my word. I don't know. I'm not a seller, but yeah, it's going to be very good again. We've got awesome topics. We've got some of the people coming up again, which was favorite previous summits. And I did a quiz just earlier today, so I had to sort it into categories. And we definitely have on the different categories that we have for marketing and running more efficient websites and creating more quality websites. And what was the other one? New and innovative stuff. So we have a very good, okay, my English is going, but a really good variety of topics. So yeah, it's going to be awesome. And we have amazing prizes. Almost all of the speakers gave away one prize for the bingo. So inside the Facebook group, we're going to have the bingo running again, and we will have quizzes and just everyone that engaged quite a bit. We'll give away prizes there as well. So I think it's going to be a fun week again.
Can I just say, I could be completely wrong about this. I don't know of any other summit that does bingo. Come on. What other reason do you need to show up? Basically, if you participate in the bingo, I can more or less guarantee that you're going to win something. Because Anshin tries really hard with the bingo, and for some reason, all you got to do is attend things and circle things on a sheet and then hand it in. And last year, I think pretty much everybody got a prize. But it's really, really nice. 35 speakers are going to be there. We're at the process right now of kind of compiling all those videos and topping them and tailing them with all the, the promotional stuff from the sponsors and what have you. But it starts, it starts next week. Chock full days. Here's a couple of nice things to know. Unlike other summits which are live, this summit everything's pre-recorded. We took the idea behind that is everybody gets their best shot. Whereas if you go live, there's a chance that the presenters may stumble or, go off in a direction which they hadn't intended and use up their time. All of the speakers record everything, send it to us, and you will be able to watch it for free for 48 hours. So basically, if you drop into the Page Builder Summit, which is at pagebuildersummit.com, if you drop in at any time, 48 hours after it first aired, you'll be able to watch it for free. Thereafter, we've got this thing called the Power Pack, which is an upsell. And if you purchase that, you can watch it for free forever. And that's it. That's the Page Builder Summit starting next week. pagebuildersummit.com. I don't know if you other three, not Anshin, not me, have anything to say about that. Probably not. I'm not going to put you on the spot unless you want to join in.
It was great in the past. I can't imagine that it wouldn't continue to be even better going forward.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's really cool. Look at this. We've got somebody new. Shusai Toda. Hello. Says, looking forward to the Page Builder Summit. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much.
Tuning in from Japan.
Yeah, tuning in from Japan. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, that's very nice. I think you may very well be our first listener that said that they're from Japan. Nice to have you with us. Okie dokie. Right, let's go into some WP other news. This is probably the big news from this week in real terms. This is the Elementor acquisition of Stratic. Do I need to describe what Elementor are? I don't think so. Elementor have bought a hosting company with a difference. Stratic, started by Miriam Schwab. Can't remember how many years ago, but let's say it was more than 5 and less than 50. She started this hosting company. It's a headless hosting company, so it's not like a traditional hosting company. You have to log in to a sort of secondary version of WordPress. You make your amendments, save them, and then that gets saved as flat HTML files. The principle being it's dead fast, and it's also secure because there is no PHP backend going on in the background. So, you can't throw crazy weird files at your file server. There's just nothing there. It's been acquired by Elementor, undisclosed amount. But I am curious because Elementor already have their cloud hosting. So this is going to run alongside of it. So essentially, as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong about this, put me straight if I'm wrong, they'll be in a very unique position. They'll be not only one of the only page builders with a cloud offering, but they'll be I think the only page builder with 2 types of cloud offering, a headless and a normal. And presumably at some point, this is going to start paying dividends to them. It feels like quite a quirky, but possibly very intelligent move. Speeding up websites and just making them more secure. I'm going to, again, just hand it over. Just butt in if you wish.
Did they say that they're going to split it up between 2 different types of cloud hosting?
Yeah, what they said, look, so this particular, so I highlighted this bit because that was the bit which led me to believe it. This quote in the middle, it says, so this is Sarah Gooding writing in the Tavern, I should say, by the way. It says, Elementor will promote the new static hosting service alongside its existing cloud service. So that's what led me to believe that. So that, I don't even know if regular hosting companies do that. Can you go, for example, to a different rival hosting company and say, I'd like the static version or I'd like just the regular version? So it puts them in quite a unique space, I think.
Dead silence.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, I will say, so Big Orange Heart, our main site is hosted on Stratic, and we do use it there. And we are using Elementor as the page builder for BigOrangeHeart.org. And so I've lots of experience of logging into, kind of logging into Stratic and then logging into the WordPress site from there. The only it is the site itself is very fast. It does take quite a bit of time to push your site to live. So, and you can watch the percentage go, but depending on how big your site, it can take up to 5 minutes for it to show up published live. But once it does, of course, then the site is super fast for site visitors. And it's not difficult to manage at all.
No, I mean, basically, when you log in, so normally you'd go to, whatever.com/WP-admin or something like that. With Stratic, you have to go to a totally separate URL, which in no way really represents your website. It's kind of like your website name as a subdomain. So, I don't know, pagebuildersummit.stratic.com or something along those lines. And then you have to wait, because you have to wait for a VPS, a really slim VPS server to spin up your WordPress website that they've got on disk somewhere. So you wait a minute or so, or however long that process takes. Then you can log in, interact with that website, and then before you finally finish making all your changes, I don't know if this is still the same, Michelle, but you used to have to click a red button, like a Stratic publish button, and then it basically goes through your website page by page and publishes every page one at a time. Maybe it's cleverer now and just does the pages that have been updated, and you just have to wait. You
can choose.
Yep.
There's options. You can choose to just do that page, or you can push the whole site to live. So if you're doing, if you're using Elementor and you're making changes to your footer, then you have to push the whole site to live. So
yep. And then you wait, like Michelle said, it may take up to 5 minutes. So this isn't a kind of log in quick, log out, but the principle being it then renders each page, saves the HTML, CSS, whatever it is, and flattens those, puts them somewhere, and they just get called when people click around on your website. So it is blazing fast on the other end. And apparently, both these companies are from Israel, and Miriam and the founder of Elementor, whose name I've actually forgotten. I think he's called, here we go, Yoni. They go back a long time. They've been in touch with each other for ages. So, they maybe had a back channel going on. And best luck to Miriam, I would say. I hope that she, hope she manages to get back to whatever it is that she was doing before, or pushes off in a new direction. Anyway, anybody else on the Elementor story?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that not all plugins will work with static hosting. So you do have to be really careful. When I was working at Give, it wasn't something that worked easily with static. And at Big Orange Heart, we came up with a solution, and we were still able to use Give on a static site. But it took a little bit of finagling because, it's not as interactive when it's sitting there on a static site. So, but there are ways around things. You just have to get clever, and you have to have somebody like Dan maybe on your team who knows how to work around those things.
So obviously Big Orange Heart, probably quite a big user of GiveWP. GiveWP, forgive me for phrasing it this way, but it's probably the quickest way for me to say it. It's a form, essentially, with a load of other features added in, but it's a form type solution, but specifically designed for giving, with all of the bits and pieces that come along for the ride. And usually that kind of stuff needs a server just chugging away in the background so that it can accept the form submissions, do things with it, process it on the reverse end. Do you have any idea what Dan did? How did he get it working?
He used an iframe. He served it through an iframe.
Okay, so that way it worked. But yeah, good point, Michelle. Do be mindful that if you're trying to chuck gravity forms, although I think they got that working. Typically form solutions and things like that are going to be more difficult, but you can always use a SAS-based form solution if you like. Anything on that, Marcus, Matt, or Anshin, or shall we move on?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
Matt.
No, you.
I'm not super familiar with Static and haven't played a lot with headless WordPress things, but for a little while it's looked like Elementor has tried to maybe separate its growth from WordPress's growth directly, and this looks like maybe it's just another step in that direction, figuring out how Elementor can, especially with the recent news of WordPress's growth maybe leveling out, Elementor trying to make sure that it continues to accelerate.
Yeah, that's similar to what I was going to say too, in the sense that Gutenberg is definitely, Elementor took off and really got so much popularity when there wasn't a dedicated page builder, site builder for WordPress core. And now that Gutenberg is actually getting a lot more mature and a lot more stable and used, I'm sure it's eating into Elementor's base. So getting more into, to me, it looks like they're trying to be the Squarespace of WordPress, essentially. If they get into that more and more, then it definitely can keep. It's a big market. There's tons of WordPress sites, and there's lots of space for lots of page builders still. Gutenberg isn't going to be the end-all, be-all. But when you're a big company like Elementor and you want to keep growing, you probably got to diversify just a little bit. So.
Anything on that, Anshin?
No, I agree.
No, you're all right. Apparently, the statistics indicate that a significant proportion of WordPress's growth over the last, let's say, 4 years is directly attributable to Elementor. Like if you took Elementor out of the growth statistics, then I could be wrong about this, but I think it basically stopped growing anything near the rate, to the point where, again, forgive me if memories failed me, but I think about 10% of all WordPress websites are now built on top of Elementor. So roughly 4% of the internet. If we take that figure of 40-something%, whatever it may be, if we take that percentage, then 10% of that would be 4% of the internet, which is just a crazy amount. And I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball to stare into, but when page builders that are that popular start putting cloud hosting in place, you do wonder at what point it's going to be almost indistinguishable from a SaaS product, because you probably won't have that much need to to go into the WordPress backend. You know, they've got the forms and they've got the pop-ups and they've got the cloud hosting and all of this kind of stuff. You can imagine it's totally end-to-end, like you say, Wix, Squarespace, and all of that kind of stuff, and probably very profitable as well. Okie doke. Right, let's move on to the next piece. Let me just put my screen back on. This one, this isn't really a story. I just wanted to share this because I was at WordCamp Europe last week. Marcus was there, so was Matt. And I just kept bumping into people. And one of the conversations that typically ensues, I don't know if it's the same for you, Matt and Marcus, but for me, the conversation was often, well, how come you're here? You know, how did you get into WordPress? What's the story, basically? And I just thought it might be quite a nice adventure just for the next 5-10 minutes or so, just to talk about that, how each of us got into it in the first place. Because I'm talking already, I'll go first. And my journey began back in, I don't know, 2000 and no, pre that, 19 something or other, when Front Page, do you remember Microsoft Front Page? Anybody? Bueller? Microsoft Front Page was a thing, and I had to, one of my friends was basically getting married, and the internet was a thing, and I just said, I'll try and build you a website. I've got this software on my computer that claimed to be able to build websites. So I started knocking about and fiddling with it, and like, I don't know, grey hair later, plus 8 weeks, and I'd built this dreadful website with like 4 images in it and a bunch of text. It was like, yes, but it actually went online, you know, went through that process of finding a cheap host and all of that, and then started getting an absolute bug for it, just thinking, blimey heck, all I did was do something on this computer, and anybody with a computer anywhere on earth can see it. And I think the magic of that is basically lost to most people now, because it's just ubiquitous. No child grows up with that thing of, wow, what, how? Whereas I was like, no, wait, I published this and it's visible by people that I've never met. What's that all about? So carried on, learnt CSS, learnt tables, because that was the way to do it. Went through a right old maelstrom of CMSs, went through Expression Engine, went through Joomla, went through Drupal for years, went through Magento and all those kind of things. And then about, I don't know, 8-10 years ago, something like that, finally found WordPress. And the moment I looked at it, this is going to sound ridiculous and very shallow, but the moment I looked at it, like the way it looked in the admin basically today is exactly what I saw when I first logged into WordPress. It wasn't that silvery, weird thing that those people who've been using it for longer looked at. And I just thought, it's beautiful. It looks much nicer than anything else. And then I started playing with it. Oh, it's more easy to use than anything else. And from that moment on, I was hooked. And by pure good luck, Beaver Builder came around about, I don't know, probably a week or so after I got into WordPress, and that made my life just so much easier. So, you know, hence the Page Builder Summit thing. I've just been using page builders of all varieties ever since then. So that's my little story. And do you want to go round the houses? Because I think it'd be nice to get this from everybody. Michelle, go on, give us your journey.
So I was working as the director of a massage school for years, and my friend who was a graduate said there's not anything to help massage therapists after they graduate. They understand how to do massage, but they don't understand how to run businesses. And so she and I started a nonprofit, which is now defunct, but it was the New York Massage Association. And her husband built us a website, and we started sending him the content. And he's like, oh, no, ladies, you have to do the content, and gave us logins. And I was terrified to, I logged in and I thought, what am I going to press that's going to ruin this website? And he's like, it doesn't matter. We can always get it back. But I just kind of fell in love with the fact that I could push a button and things I wrote, people anywhere in the world could see. Now, of course, nobody was finding our website, but that's beside the point. They could, right? And so from that point on, I said to him, I understand how to register a domain, and I understand how to use WordPress. What I don't understand is how to get WordPress on the domain, and move forward. And so he said, well, I'll tell you what, they had 5 kids. You come over, make dinner. I will teach it to you. So I went over, I made spaghetti dinner for the family while she was working. Afterwards, we sat down. He taught me everything I needed to know. Somewhere I still have a little blue piece of paper with 4 steps on it. download WordPress, upload WordPress, change your salt keys, change your WP config. There's your website.
Yeah, it was.
And that's how it
was
happened.
more complicated, wasn't it, back then?
It was 2012, so it's been 10 years this year.
Do you know what? You made a really interesting point there, which I'd completely forgotten, and that was that search engines didn't exist. You didn't build a website in the hopes that strangers would find it. You built a website because it was like handing out books without paper. You know, you would just tell people that you'd got a website and hope that they, you know, made the effort to go and find it. And everything. Do you remember you had to submit to? They weren't even search engines. What were they called? Directory sites like Yahoo and things like that. And the web was categorized. AOL and all of that. But you weren't building it to be found. Well, maybe some people were, but when I did it, it was very much a case of, okay, I've got this website, and here's it. You know, even to the point you'd write it down on bits of paper and hand it over and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we printed brochures, we printed business cards, and you put the website on those printed materials.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Part of the reason why in the WordPress admin it's hidden now, but they have a links feature. Because way back in the day, you used to just share links to everybody, and you would list all your links in your WordPress, and you could show it on the sidebar, and it's like, these are my friends, because that was the best way to get found, was getting on somebody's links.
Oh, this is great. We're getting all nostalgic, aren't we? This is brilliant. Neil Robinson. Hello, Neil. I don't know if you've joined us before, but nice to meet you. He's shared his journey in 3 words: front page, Dreamweaver, WordPress. I forgot the Dreamweaver piece. I used Dreamweaver.
We all want to forget it.
Yeah, I was going to say, until I threw the laptop against the wall. I didn't actually do that, but it made me feel like that. Dreamweaver was sold as this, like, it's so easy. And then you started, it was like, it's so hard. Why did they make something so difficult? And then Courtney said, you're going to forgive me, Courtney, but I don't know that acronym. DMOZ? DMOZ? Anybody? No, nobody knows what that is. Courtney, tell us what DMOZ stands for, and we'll put it up there. Right, Marcus, your turn. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So I started out as a designer, wanting to do just graphic design, and was in college. And my parents were like, "What is this thing that you're pursuing?" And so I needed a way to show them that, you know, I design things and what it looked like, and that there was a future in that. And this is late 90s, early 2000s. And so I was like, well, I need to put this online somewhere so my parents can see it. And I had created these really elaborate CD cases. Do you remember CDs with the jewel cases? And I would design a label, and let's not talk about how I got the music for those. And I would make CDs and create these elaborate cases for them. And so I made a site that had, you know, a volume of these CDs that I had made, and designed the website to go with it. This was a little bit text edit, and then I think I jumped into Dreamweaver at some point too, tables and all. And I would put those online for them to see. And I was like, well, this is kind of fun. I really kind of enjoy the reward of writing some code, and then there's this visual thing that shows up and I can share it with people. And so kind of set me down a path there, still kind of designer first, because that was my passion, trying to design as best I could with tables and all that. And then I started working for an agency, just a very small agency, building websites. And came time for us to figure out what we were going to do for a content management system. That was kind of a new buzzword, content management system. Let your clients do all the work. You just build it, and then they can do all the updates. We know how that turns out sometimes, but it was time to figure that out. And we tested a few things. WordPress was one of them. At that point, it was still the blogging platform. And we're like, yeah, it's not quite what we need. We need a little bit more than that. So we ended up going the Drupal route for many, many years. And then at some point, Drupal was headed in a different direction than we were. And we're like, let's figure out what the landscape looks like now. And WordPress had matured and come around and did everything we needed to. Like Michelle said, is so much easier than what we were doing. And so we headed in that direction. That was, I want to say, maybe 2015 or so.
Oh, not so long. That's good. Interesting.
Yeah, not that long ago. And then really wasn't part of the WordPress community until right before COVID. Really started diving in. I think I went to one WordCamp Orlando, and then COVID shut everything down. So WordCamp Europe was a whole different experience for me.
Oh, that's such an interesting bit. I don't know why, but I assumed that you'd been using WordPress for decades or something like that. That's fascinating. Drupal. I loved Drupal. I wish I could still be using Drupal on some level, because I really did like it. They had. Do you remember Views? The Views module.
Views.
Ah, man alive.
Views and the permission system are still things I wish that WordPress adopted from the Drupal. I loved Drupal, the Drupal that I started with, but I'm happy to have left the Drupal that I left behind.
That's exactly where I am. So basically, whenever you register anything in Drupal, so custom post types, they're inside core. You can create custom post types without writing code. You just literally tick boxes. And then as soon as you register those, all the permissions for those custom post types, so you can lock everything down. And it is, I think it's still in many ways superior to that extent, but
very granular. That's a lot of checkboxes on the permissions page.
Oh my word, that permission screen was like the most difficult thing to see.
Yeah, but you could make it do whatever you wanted it to do.
Yeah, you
give
really
it credit for that.
You really could. Right, we've got a few more comments before we go to Anshin and before we go to Matt. So Demos, it's been cleared up. Demos was the original directory for sites. Got it. So it was Mozilla's version. I've just clicked that link, Michelle, directory.mozilla.org, and it's defunct, whatever they once had there. But it's gone now, sadly, probably killed by the giant Google. So here we go. Here's some other people sharing. So Shusei, I am so sorry if I'm butchering your name. He's a homepage builder, Japanese original. He started with Dreamweaver, then moved to Movable Type. Yes,
Movable Type
as well. Yeah, and then finally WordPress. There seems to be there's three little jumps along the way. It seems like you get to WordPress third, except of course Peter, who's 4. Okay, 5. IIS, is that Internet Information Service? Is that on MS? Is that inside of MS? HTX, no idea. MS Access, not really any idea. Dreamweaver, Cold Fusion. That was Adobe, right? Or what was it called back then? They got bought by Adobe. Macromedia. And then finally WordPress. Yeah, thank you, Peter. Thank you for sharing those little journeys. Right, Anshin, you're up. What's your story?
So I studied information technology, and then my first job as a developer was ASP.NET, C#. So created all these sites in ASP.NET, and as you do, people started. I started doing projects on the sideline, and I did these ASP.NET sites. If I think back, it was terrible, but in any case. And then I got an inquiry for a shop, and I had no idea, or I probably could have figured it out, but someone told me, no, if you do it on WordPress, it's so much easier. You have this WooCommerce and plugin and everything. So that was about 2012, I think, that I did my first. So my first site on WordPress was actually an e-commerce site. So it was like a really big thing, but it was so much easier than having to do it on ASP.NET. So yeah, I immediately started doing so I did the full-on sideline thing for about up until 2016, so about 4 years. I did client sites on the sideline until I, in 2016, went full-time doing it by myself.
Into WordPress. Do you still like hang out in the ASPX community? No,
not at all.
It's gone.
Yeah,
no, okay.
So I used to be especially we were living in New Zealand at that time, and the community was quite big there. The whole Microsoft conferences and things. And then I think it's 2015 or 2016, I went to my first WordCamp, and it was so different. I loved it. And I went to my first WordCamp in Cape Town and joined the organizing team for WordCamp Joburg. And I was I think we were only like 5 organizers. So we did immediately jumped into organizing a meetup here in Pretoria. It was totally different. So I was at that point converted and didn't want to do it, didn't want to work in it anymore. So
that's a nice story though as well. Yours was a fairly swift transition. ASP straight to WordPress. Yeah, I fiddled with ASP for I got about 100 pages into this 900-page book, and I was just like, I'm not there's no way I'm finished. I said I think the book got burned on a fire several years ago, and here we are. And then finally, Matt, you're in a slightly different position to everybody because you actually went full in with like plugin, which is like another layer altogether. So run us through your journey, but also give us that layer on top, how you ended up saying, well, I'm doing a plugin. My life is going to be a plugin.
Yeah. So I think that I was thinking back, what made me actually start the web? I was a teacher at a private school here in Germany, and I wanted to do the cool young teacher thing and have like an online syllabus. And I was like, how do I do that? How do I let my students see where they can see all the information all the time? And dug into the web, and literally I just had Notepad, and I was trying to put a syllabus up on like what was it called back then? Livefire? Gosh, I forget.
That's okay. Live Journal?
No, I'm going to forget the name, but anyway, HTML, CSS, and FTP, like that was what I was doing, and I got more and more into it, and then ended up trying to do an online course and stumbled on Moodle, which is still around actually. And yeah, it's actually going through its fourth iteration of a giant revamp that they're doing right now. Big open source education platform that I still really have a lot of respect for. Did that for a long time, and then like teachers and churches and folks were all like, this young guy knows how to build websites. I didn't, but I was doing it. And so they just volunteered me all the time for that stuff. And so I was like, every time I have to add a page, I have to go and update every single page with the new link on the menu. How do I like make this better? And I stumbled on my first CMS, which me and 5 other people in the world use this CMS. It was called Website Bakery. Website Baker, excuse me, Website Baker. That was my first step into a CMS. But I kept looking at this one thing called Kubrick, which I thought was just the most beautiful design ever. And that was actually WordPress's default theme for like 5 years. And I was like, how do I get Kubrick? You have to install this thing called WordPress. I'm not doing that. That's too much work. But I really liked Kubrick. But I did make, in the end, this is my big side gig thing. Like I just was building all these websites for free, and just started noticing that like more people want me to build more websites, and I should probably actually start charging for it. And then I was also studying to further my education, and started having my websites funding my education. Essentially, I wanted to be a professor. And at one stage, I really started to do, this is like a 15-year journey. But like at one point I had a mortgage and kids, and I was still studying and still building websites. And I started to do the math, and geez, being a history teacher doesn't pay all that well anymore. So, and this WordPress thing seems to be working out. So I had to choose. And WordPress has been more beneficial for my family than a teacher would have been, unfortunately. But jumped into WordPress, and it's been great. I was freelancing, and I got introduced to a lot of folks in San Diego through the Advanced WordPress meetup in San Diego, and which became the Advanced WordPress Facebook group also, that I've been kind of lead adminning for a long time now. And I have to say, just one little hat tip to the Advanced WordPress group. I actually feel like over the last like COVID and everything, man, the quality of conversations in that group has become really excellent. I've loved the whole history of that group for a long time, but recently folks are really like living up to the Advanced WordPress name now. They're really asking some really great questions and learning a lot of things. And I see a lot of people leveling up in there a lot. So it's been cool. But through the Advanced WordPress group, I met my business partner, Devin Walker. He and I were both freelancing and helping with nonprofit websites a lot. And we just said, hey, why don't we partner up and solve a big problem in WordPress together? We didn't know what it was going to be or whatever, but we just thought that joining forces would be better. And shortly after we started working together, we went to the very last Camp San Francisco, which was 2014. We had a great time there, and we went out to dinner and said, like, let's figure out what our big thing is going to be. And we both said, like, what is our biggest pain point when we're building sites for nonprofits? Donations. Like, back then, online donations were so hard to implement. There were so many barriers to entry. You definitely could use a normal form builder, or you could use an e-commerce platform, but it was just, you had to really arm wrestle them to really be made for donors and donations and things like that. So we said, let's just attack online donations and make something that nobody's seen before. And that's what we did. Launched that in 2015, and we had a lot of different revenue streams when we launched, and over the years we just one by one started getting rid of them so that we can just laser focus just on GiveWP. And that's been great. So
that's a cool story. It's really interesting. Amongst the five of us, only one of us was intentional, and that, I think, is Anshin. She's the one that sort of decided at a college level that she was going to do something with computers, whereas the rest of us, and that seems to be played out with my experiences, that it's very unusual to bump into somebody at WordCamp who was like full on, I'm going to be a web developer from an early age. But I wonder if that's a product of the demographic. Whereas now, I think you could totally open up any university prospectus and see a full-on course in web development and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas I'm pretty sure nothing like that existed. You'd have been doing some fairly dry computer management or something like that course. But yeah, interesting. Moodle, you have a friend. Courtney says Moodle was my gateway into open source WordPress. Open source 2, Matt. My kids' website for their school is still built on Moodle. You know how you end up just sort of right-clicking on anything these days? You go to a website, you right-click, inspect. How was that done? And Moodle it is, and it totally works. And I was really surprised. I thought it was one of those projects which had kind of stalled and everything looked a bit 1990s. But no, it looked great, really cool. And they've got all the ability to learn, log in, LMS, basically. It's really, really cool. So there's that. And then Elliot Sowersby says he used WordPress for his first ever site back in early 2010. That's pretty much all he's used since. That's cool. What a nice range of stories. We don't often do stories, do we, Michelle? And that was kind of a nice...
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, that was
It's funny, you're talking about curriculums. Like, I graduated college in 1991, and there still was no public internet yet. So I could not have majored in anything web had I wanted to. I didn't know it was going to be a thing.
They're talking in the UK, and I don't know if this is a conversation which is going on elsewhere, but they're talking about making the internet how to describe it. So in the same way that every citizen is entitled to water and is entitled to electricity and all of those basic things, kind of along the lines of like a human right. They're talking about the fact that the internet might at some point soon fall under that category. It's an essential thing which everybody now needs. And as I kind of think on some level that seems a little bit quirky, but on the other hand, now that, for example, all of my banking is done online, the branches are slowly but surely just disappearing from the high streets. And more, every single thing that needs to be done, from booking flights to getting appointments with my school children's teachers at appointment time, all of that has been taken off the paper, off the phone, and everything is now online. I'm kind of swinging towards the fact that it is becoming a bit of a basic human right. And I don't know, maybe that's another direction to go in, but yeah, there we go. Okay. Anybody else got anything else? But they were nice stories to share. I'm just going to slug some water. All right. Next one up then. Speaking of plugins, this is cool. This is Sarah Gooding on WP Tavern. This is a new thing, although I think things like this have existed before. This is a thing called, it's the WordPress Plugin Compare project. It's by RT Camp. This is for those of you out there who are a bit stymied. You go to the WordPress repository and you've got, like, I don't know, let's take an example of something which everybody needs on a website, a form. You go there and you're a newbie user and you haven't really got any clue which forms are which and which one's better for this and that and the other. And you're sort of bamboozled by choice. There's 60,000-ish plugins, 59,000, something like that, plugins on there. And it's hard to know. If you're not a nerd like the five of us who obsess about WordPress and you're just sort of a casual user, where would you go? Well, here's an idea. You go to this website and you type in, you do a search for, let's say, I don't know, Gravity forms. I don't know if, for example, they have a free version on the repo, but let's imagine they do. And then you can add to that. So you then might type in, I don't know, Fluent forms and Ninja forms and Formidable forms. And then it puts them side by side and lists some key metrics and key data. I did one earlier, actually, on 3 page builders, what with, the Summit and all. So I just typed in Beaver Builder and then Elementor and then Breezy. And then you can just sort of compare some basic statistics, like what version number they're on, when it was last updated, what version of WordPress does it require, number of active installations. I don't know where they get this support score from, because they make some claims about knowing how good they are at supporting their plugin. I'm guessing some sort of ticketing system over on WordPress.org, the replies in the forums and so on. And it just gives you some little window into, well, all right, that one hasn't been updated for 9 months. That one was updated 2 months ago. Maybe I'll go for that. I just thought this was a nice little project to share. I could have made use of this so many times, and especially given the weight of similar plugins on the WordPress repo, I just thought this was worth sharing. Would any of you guys make use of any of this kind of stuff, or are you all now ensconced? You know what you want. You've got your basic setup all straightened out.
I think it's a good.
Should we go? Let's go, Anshin, and then Matt.
Okay, so I do have my stack that I use on, but there's always something that comes up, like, I don't know, like we didn't use the GDPR notifications before here in South Africa, but then it became law. So, and I didn't know which ones, so things like that you don't use every day, and you might just, like, one site needs something small. So I think it would be very helpful.
Yeah, that's right. Matt?
I think it's a good start in a decent direction, but Cameron Jones just chimed in on pretty much what I think too, is that, like, you could put like 4 different plugins on there that have nothing to do with each other, and it would feel almost like the same type of comparisons here, like, without being able to know how good the plugin is on its feature set specifically. It's harder. Or, for example, being able to categorize them and look at it that way, or usability, regardless of what the features are of the plugin, how do people find it in terms of usability, for example. So sites like G2, for example, do a good job of getting reviews based on feature set and usability and all those types of things. So if plugin compare started getting more custom information from actual users, then it could go in a much nicer direction, I think.
Have any of you ever come across this one that I'm showing on the screen at the moment? Sorry if you're watching me doing a Google search to try and find it. This is WP Hive. So it's a similar project, but it also adds in, and my suspicion is that they go a step further. So if you, let's put in the name of something. Let's put in, I don't know, because we're talking about page builders, let's put in Elementor. And you can search for it, and then it obviously shows you a whole bunch of stuff. And then it goes into much more detail than the RT Camp one that we just saw. So it talks about minimal impact on memory usage, and you basically get a tick or a cross. Minimal impact on page speed, PHP errors, and so on. And this whole lot just keeps going. Then they've got some performance metrics. So I'm guessing this isn't happening live. They must be polling. I don't know. They must download the plugin off the repository, stick it on a server somewhere, test it out, do some kind of stress testing on it. I'm not entirely sure, but you can see there's a whole load more in here. But this is more one at a time kind of thing. You don't get to have that. Well, maybe you can. Maybe there is a way of comparing things. But this is a really cool website. WP Hive enables you to get a lot more metrics. And if you're a bit nerdy, this might be for you. But anyway, Michelle or Marcus, anything on the RT camp thing? Would you use anything like that?
Yeah, I like it. I think where maybe WP Hive has taken it a step further is that discoverability. I still feel like you have to know what you're comparing here. So if you're just looking for what's the best form plugin, maybe you get lucky and you type in form and you pick 4 and hope for the best. Hope that the best one is one of the 4 that you picked from the search. But I still think you need to kind of know what it is you're trying to compare here. Where I do think that could be helpful is if I'm thinking back to client services days, when you're trying to talk to a client and convince them this is the direction we should go versus some other plugin, and being able to have your recommendation versus maybe a couple of others that they've heard of together to be able to convince them this is the one we should go with. And the fact that those URLs are shareable, you can add, your 3-4 plugins in there and then copy that URL, send it to a client and say, hey, we've done some research. This is the one I think we should go with for your site. And I think that's where maybe something like this plugin compare project could be helpful.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't really noticed that the URL was shareable. So each time you add in a new plugin, looks like 4 is the maximum. The URL is extended with a comma and then the name of that plugin, presumably the slug on the repo. I'm not sure. But you therefore would be able to share it and put anything you like in there. Presumably, you could put your own plugin 4 times if you liked, and give WP, give WP, give WP, and give WP. Compare it.
I think we should go with.
Yeah, we compare it to itself lots of times. Yeah.
Here's your choices, client. Give WP or give WP.
Was discoverability, Matt, like 59,000 plugins? I know it when we're talking about the App Store on iOS and Android, it's a drop in the ocean. But nevertheless, did you have? Is it still a big deal, like discoverability? Marcus was talking about, it's hard to sort of find your way and stick your neck above the parapet and get noticed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just the same thing when you're talking about organic search on Google. That with so many, millions of results available, nobody's ever going to come to you unless you get up towards the top of those search results. So the WordPress.org search metrics and the way that the search is generated is super important. There's a great tool called Plugin Rank, for example, that really helps digest what those results look like over time. And we see all the time that if we tweak things just a little tiny bit, we'll get a little bit higher on certain keywords and things like that. And we have to pay attention to it all the time, since the free plugin is our meat and potatoes of what we do. So.
Nice. Well, I tried this one. I tried plugincompare.com/compare query plugins equal give. And no. They're ahead of us. They thought about this problem, which would really be a bit of a disruptive thing in their business. But interesting. It didn't work. You only get the one, and apparently it's been available for 7 years. It was last updated 4 weeks ago. Current version is 2.201. Requires WordPress 5, and it's got a very, very, very healthy rating on the WordPress.org repository. So there you go. They don't need to see it 3 times. Once is enough. Okay, moving on then. Let's go to the next story. All right, I am totally ignorant about this. I didn't even know this was a thing. And I read this and I tried to get my head around it in the small amount of time I had available. So forgive me if I muck this up. But this is on Search Engine Journal. And you don't often find them talking about WordPress plugins. They talk about WordPress a fair amount, actually, increasingly, which is interesting, considering it's not a WordPress site. So it says Yoast on why it's adopting the Index Now protocol. Yeah, Joost de Valk, who, if memory serves, is no longer sort of at the reins of Yoast. He explains the surprising reason why they've changed their mind over at Yoast, the company, not the man, using Index Now and adding it into their search plugin. Because they originally dismissed it, and I'm going to quote, after originally dismissing Microsoft's open source Index Now search engine indexing protocol, Yoast has reversed course and indicated that they will now support it. So it says, and this is where I got lost, Index Now is an indexing protocol that helps websites receive near instant indexing by search results. It's an open source initiative designed to help websites alert search engines to new or updated content. So the idea being, you have presumably a plugin like Yoast on your website. It's got some sort of Index Now functionality built into it. And when you click publish or update, the search engines instantly get notified about it. So what it's basically getting rid of is the need for the crawl, that thing where you update your content. And, you know, I think these days Google's probably there within a matter of minutes anyway, but assuming they weren't, they'll now be told there's new content. And it feels like, from what I read, not only will they be told there's new content, but here's what the new content is. In other words, we're giving you the whole thing. You don't need to go out and find it and work it out for yourself. Here's what it is. And I just can't see why this isn't a good idea. I can't see why nobody would use this. Yoast weren't. Seemingly, Google have now said we'll start using it. Maybe they were holding out. They felt that it was, I don't know, getting rid of their secret sauce. Maybe they've got some voodoo going on that, you know, by indexing in a certain way, they could outbeat their competition. But this is going to happen. Strikes me as a really good idea. So, discuss. What do you think of this?
Well, I was joking before we actually went live that now it's going to be really difficult to explain to your clients that they won't show up at the top of the first page once they've published their site. I think just because it's been indexed doesn't mean that you are going to be ranking for all the right words. I think that there's going to be a lot of misunderstanding between clients and what actually happens when we publish websites. There already is that, so to speak, but we've been able to explain in the past, you know, how these things take time for ranking for words. We're looking for content, all of those things. Those are still true. Just because it's been indexed quickly doesn't mean that all of those things aren't still true.
Yeah, that's a good point. This isn't a question of you being better in the search pages. It's just will be crawled instantaneously.
Right.
In many ways, I can't understand why nobody came up with this like a decade ago. You know, wouldn't it have been sensible for all of us to ping the search engines and say we've got updated content?
But didn't we do that when we used to submit, like we were talking about 5 minutes ago?
Yes,
yes. Basically, that's what we were doing when I was like, oh, now I have to submit it to Google, and now I have to submit it to Yahoo and AOL and all of those things.
So it's not a sort of direct swap for sitemap.xml, which I'm presuming most people have got somewhere buried on each and every website, because that's very much, here, Google, here's my sitemap. You now go and make a lot of effort to find it. Presumably, it's just a good idea, probably cutting down on a lot of wasted Google crawls around the internet. But at the minute, Google aren't even using it. Let me just give you the list of search engines which are currently using it, because I'd heard of 2 of them. And then one of them was like, what is that? Bing is number 1. They're using it. Yandex, heard of them, never used it. And there's one here called Seznam, the famous Seznam. Anybody heard of Seznam? Yeah? No? Beulah again.
I think a cave somewhere in Saudi Arabia just opened when you said that. Like,
that's right. Can you imagine, like, if you're a search engine, can you imagine how humiliating it would be if you had to Google it? Just be like, oh, the world, swallow me up. I'm working for a search engine that needs to be indexed on Google. Anyway, carry on. Michelle, let's have her go. Anybody else on this think it's a good idea? Gonna use it?
The only thing that I know I might have it all wrong is that if this is the standard, if this becomes the standard, and you would need something like Yoast to send it, or like to update it or whatever, that would become again a thing for especially people doesn't know, you know, because there's not just this scrolling happening in the back that would normally happen.
Well, we have a sitemap now in WordPress, don't we? And it feels to me that if this became the dominant way of doing it, this totally hits the target of 80% of the people need it. you would imagine that if this became the thing, the way of getting search engines, then WordPress core would have to at least look at it. But it did say, you're right, Anshin, in here in this article, it actually says it's coming into Yoast. What do they call it? Do they call it premium or pro? Premium.
Yeah, premium.
Yoast SEO premium. So it's not going to be in their free version.
But they were considering if it gets good adoption, then they would put it in the free as well. That's what the article mentioned.
Okay,
it's interesting. I mean, I think I'm hoping that it just is an indicator that other non-Google search engines are getting more use and adoption. That's kind of what I was hoping, because we definitely need more variety and equality in the search engine space. So,
what was that thing called again? What was that search engine that I just mocked horribly? What was it called? Seznam or something? SEZNAM. I'm gonna.
All three of those employees are so mad at you. Right now.
That's right. I've totally. I'm gonna Google it. Google.seznam. Here we go. SEZ. We say Z. NAM. Okay, so it's in a language I don't recognize. Maybe it's Czechoslovakia or something like that. I don't know what that is, but it's a thing. Go and search on Seznam and see if it works. Alrighty, what do we got left? Okay, right. Shout out to somebody. Don't normally do this, but we had a plugin on the podcast this week, and I just thought I really wanted to give the guys over at If So a bit of a free plug, because it came on the podcast, and it's a guy called Joseph Carmeli. They're based in Israel, and it's a dynamic content plugin. So you set a condition. It's a bit like If This Then That or Zapier or something like that in your WordPress website. You set a condition, so it's the 14th of December, and then you set a result. So display snow all over the website, because that's what everybody does. Or you could say, if you're on an Android device, show this. Or if you're on I don't know, if you've come from the country of Britain, show this, and so on. And I just really appreciate that Joseph went to incredible lengths to make this work. So I just want to show you the sort of things that you can do. It'll only take me a minute, but I really do like it. So this is our blog post, and he sent me a special URL, and the special URL has the letters WP builds in it, and it could literally be any part of the URL. It could be a query string, or it could literally be WP builds at any point. And you click on it, and it goes to their website. So it goes to the If So website. Well, apparently it doesn't. The earth can swallow me up, because now it's not working. It's gone to there we go. Don't know why that took so long. And you can see at the top of the website, they've added in this little like fun little offer. There's a countdown timer. So basically they've added in a row, and that row is displaying because you came from us. But imagine that came from any other kind of condition. Now, this is the cool bit. It says, a friend of WP Builds is a friend of ours. Look for the genie lamp in the footer. Okay, so right, there's a gimmick. So you have to go to the footer. There it is. And there in the footer, buried amongst all the little icons, is this little genie lamp. And you have to click it 3 times. If you don't click it 3 times, nothing happens. You really have to stay the course. So here we go. I'll click it 1, 2, 3,
and say Seznam at the same time.
Seznam at exactly the same moment. And then it takes you to a page. And if you didn't arrive at that page by clicking on that genie 3 times, you get their regular pricing. But he's completely overwritten it, laid over the top of that, if you like, is this, he's called it the WP Build secret discount. You get 80% off. But I just thought, wow, man alive, he came on my podcast and he went to all that effort. He set up the discounted pricing. He set up this quirky offer with all these interesting conditions. And I don't know if you saw, because I'm going to go back and do it again. If you click on that link again, and it actually worked much more quickly this time. Look, halfway down the page, he's taken it off now. There was a guy here dressed in all the WP Builds colours, and he was holding up a flag saying WP Builds and all that kind of stuff. That's now seemingly been taken down. But how cool is that? Don't you think that's amazing?
Nice.
Really, really nice. So that's wpbuilds.com. It's episode number 282. Go and check it out. That offer, 80% off his plugin, is available for another, I think it said 10 days. Did anybody spy that? I think it said 10 days. 10 days, 6 hours, 34 minutes, and 5 seconds. And just hat tip to Joseph and his team. Brilliant plugin, and really cool for them to do that. Okay, I don't know what you think about this. This is totally off topic. We're not dealing with WordPress anymore. This is iMessage. Now, I've never owned an Apple. Well, I've got a Mac, but I don't use iMessage because I don't have a phone. I think it's available on the Mac, but I've never used it. Apple have decided that in the near future, they're going to roll out a undo feature. So, unsend. So you can send somebody a message, and then you can sort of like suck it out of their phone. And kind of a controversial move if you think about it. On the face of it, this strikes me as like, without any thought, this strikes me as, well, that's a good idea. Because what if I write something and then realize I've sent it to the wrong person? Or I have just in error, I'm sending something to the Oxford English Dictionary and I've spelt a word incorrectly. Something along those lines. But if you give it a bit more thought and let it percolate for a moment, you can see where the opportunity for abuse starts to creep in. Mm-hmm. You start to send people things that they didn't desire, like advertising messages, and then a minute later you just suck it out and claim never did it. Wasn't me. It was a mistake. I'm really sorry. We sent them all out in error and we didn't mean to do so. We just pulled them back quickly. The fact is the damage has been done. And there's an interesting little anecdotal story down here. One of the authors of this article got into a spot of bother. He doesn't describe what it is, but he got in trouble, and lawyers got involved. And the only way that he could prove his innocence was by this litany of text messages that he still had on his phone. And you're not going to save those text messages, are you? You're never going to save them thinking in the future I'm going to need these. You're just going to think, well, they'll be there if I ever need them in the future. Well, of course, in this scenario, they won't. So I'm just sort of curious what your thoughts are. On the face of it, it's a really nice idea. But now that we live through our mobile phones and communication happens through our mobile phones, I wonder if things like email, which once you've clicked send, it's gone. It's no longer yours. I wonder if that's better. Like, would you ever get into a client conversation on iMessage if you knew that they could suck the message out of your phone? I would worry about that. So again, I'll let you guys toss that one around a bit.
Yeah, so Cameron just put a message in there. That's what I was thinking anyway. So other messaging systems already have this, and they, like Facebook, for example, Facebook Messenger. And if you retract something or unsend something, it does say, just like you say, like Michelle unsent a message, and so I can still say, what did you send? What was it? That kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never wanted to interact with clients in the past over text messages anyway.
No.
That's just not a good. That's just not a good. It's I text my daughter. I text my friends. I don't text professionally. So.
Yeah, I guess the difference I would say about the whole messenger thing is that there's some sort of context there, whereas text message is wide open, right? There's no gatekeeper to me receiving a text message. If you stumble across my number, I am getting your text message. Whereas on Facebook, in Messenger at least, you have to find me, you have to click, whatever it is, and then I have to accept that I'm going to start communicating with you from forevermore. Whereas on text message, maybe that's changed, but it seems that protocol is wide open. It's a bit more like the letterbox or the email inbox. I can't stop stuff coming in. I can only deal with it after it's come in, which is why on, we have abuse and spam in email. But at least once it's hit your box, you've got it and you've got proof of it forever. But you're right, Michelle. I wouldn't either.
That's a subtle difference, I think, between actual SMS texting and these services like WhatsApp and whatnot, is that SMS texting really is a permanent record that you can't delete. And in the US, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but in the US, it is, there are like protections and it can be used in court and things like that, because it's supposed to be an actual record of actual communication, similar to email. But when you start using WhatsApp or Messenger or these other types of these are not going over SMS anymore. They're going over the internet, so they're an app in one way or another. And I didn't know that, but I thought iMessage was more of just a pure SMS platform, but it sounds like it's probably moved more and more strongly into like a WhatsApp type of thing, and everything is just being pushed over the internet now and not over the telephone provider like SMS does. So if and maybe there's options. Maybe in iMessage you can be like, I just want it to be my pure text messenger thing and not over the internet or whatnot. But
I kind of like the way that Slack does it, where it says edited, and then you can
see the changes.
Yeah, you just go back and you can see the changes, and so in that way, the person sending the message is clearly able to re-articulate what they messed up. So the spelling mistakes get fixed, or I'm just really sorry, I just sent this entirely to the wrong person. Forgive me, that kind of thing. But you've got an indication that something was there, it was amended. I do like that. I prefer that implementation, and this doesn't seem to be going that way. Okay, on the other hand, I've got 3 children, all of them who have iOS devices, and I put this story past my son, and he said, nobody uses iMessage, forget about it, it's a non-story. Okay, fine. Nobody's using iMessage, Dad. So maybe there's nothing in it. Okay. Let's go to photos and show off some of Marcus's fabulous stuff. First of all, Marcus, we've got a very short amount of time. I do apologize. Marcus, just wants to highlight the photo directory at wordpress.org/photos. Anything in particular about the directory that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I know a lot of people were at EU and spent some time traveling and vacationing, and now's a good time to sift through those photos and share some of those with the directory. So I think it's just timely based on people maybe having spent some time in the last couple of weeks taking more photos than usual.
Yeah, 2,944 free photos have been uploaded so far. It does say you're a bit early to the party. This directory hasn't yet fully launched. However, you're welcome to submit them, and I know Michelle's been submitting like crazy. I reckon about 1,500 of the photos on the photo directory are Michelle's.
No, I was blessed not to have to submit them that way. I was asked to contribute them.
Oh, nice! Oh, look at you!
I haven't had to upload any yet, but those are coming.
VIP treatment.
That's right there. Yeah,
I think they called it priming the pump.
Priming the pump. Yeah, that's right. But you wanted to I don't know if you wanted to show us. You submitted a bunch of yours that you can see here. MD Burnette is your handle. So it's wordpress.org/photos/author and then the slug. So in your case, MD Burnette. What's yours, Michelle?
It's Michelle Ames.
Okay. Yep. Like you are.
Just if you are going to submit any, make sure they're not watermarked with your your company name or anything like that, because we can't put those in the directory.
And faces as well. Is that right? No human faces.
Correct. No face. No recognizable faces.
No recognizable faces.
The turtle and the chick faces are just fine.
That's right. Yeah. No human faces.
No recognizable human faces.
And as soon as I saw this, one of the pictures just jumped out. Well, actually, there was a few of them that jumped out to me, and they were basic. I said to Marcus, "Have you got a drone?" And he's like, "Yep, I've got a drone." Where's that?
That is swampland between here in Orlando and the east coast of Florida.
That's the US.
Yes.
Wow, I fully thought we were in like Africa or something for that one.
Nope.
Wow.
That's
so
Florida.
Up goes the drone, and there's a whole bunch more with the drone. Look at these beauties. Look at that one. Lovely. You like water, don't you? You like scenes with water in.
Very much so. Well, there's a lot of it around here in Florida.
Yeah. you like water, only in this case it's in like a big container on top of a load of sticks. But there we go. It's the photo directory. Go and check out Marcus's. Is it pretty easy now, Marcus? You upload them and they're there a couple of days later, or does it take a while to get them verified?
Yeah, usually within a day or so. But we're growing our moderator group as well, so hoping to cut that time down even further. If anybody is interested in moderating the photos, then make.wordpress.org/photos has the handbook and the application to become a moderator as well.
And there are new badges, by the way. I don't know, Marcus, did you see the badges on your profile yet? There's new badges for being part of the directory.
There's a contributor badge. So go ahead and upload a photo and get your contributor badge, and then also moderation badges.
All right, but no photos of people. And obviously, usual caveats apply. There's obviously some sort of sensible boundaries that you've got to obey. Copyright and other more offensive things. Just be a good person and upload sensible stuff, and everybody will thank you for it. That's it. That's all we've got time for this week in WordPress. Quick shout out to Peach, who said she's got a great idea. She's got loads of photos of Porto, and I'll upload them to the directory. Yes, indeed. Right. Michelle knows about this, but I don't know if Anshin, Marcus, or Matt know. Yeah, Michelle, you know. It's the slightly humiliating hand waving at the end. It's only slightly humiliating, but basically, this is what I use for the sort of album art. So if you're feeling able and you want to raise your hands right now. So Anshin, Anshin's not doing it. Look, she's the holdout. Got it. Thank you so much. We'll be back. Actually, will we be back? We won't be back next week because
not next week.
There's a summit. There's a thing going
Summit's
on. Happening, and I think Anshin would probably be quite annoyed at me if I took the time to do this show during the summit.
Back in 2 weeks.
Back in 2 weeks' time. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Anshin. And thank you, Matt. I hope you join us another time for This Week in WordPress. Take it easy.